This is BBC One in the northeast in Cumbria. Now here's Chris Jackson with the last in the current series of Inside Out.
In the next half an hour, has the government's money man got a lesson for the people of Carlisle?
If I see something, I think, oh, I like that, I can't get it because I can't afford it. If you haven't got the money, you can't buy it.
The North's jaded new towns. Can those that loathe them learn to love them?
It's a fantastic piece of late 60s brutalism. It's really very sculptural, isn't it?
It's amazing and it's almost elegant.
And Merry Christmas. We discover why Ebenezer Scrooge owes a debt to North Yorkshire.
Charles Dickens did tell the family that the office in Chancery Lane was Scrooge's office.
Ah! Humbug.
Stories from the heart of the northeast and Cumbria. This is Inside Out. You know what they say, look after the pennies and the pounds will look after themselves. Well, the government certainly believes we could all wise up when it comes to money. In fact, they've appointed an expert to help us all get canny with our finances. But is it all easier said than done? Well, we put the expert and also the theory to the test in Carlisle. Meet a man on a fact-finding mission.
Well, I've got a challenge because I've been helping to set up a new service, Money Made Clear, which is intended to help people manage their money more effectively, because I believe passionately that if people are more in control of their money, they'll feel more in control of the rest of their lives and feel better about themselves. So I'm here on the Raffles estate in Carlisle to see whether it's making a difference to people here.
Chris is not your normal financial advisor. He's one of the top bods with the Financial Services Authority, and with the government, they're trying to make us all more canny with our money. But can the best laid plans in the City of London actually make it on the streets of a city like this?
Oh, you can see what Sunday's going to bring, can't you? I'm in one go.
Michelle is the reality check for Chris. She really struggles to make ends meet. With 3 kids to feed, as well as bills and debts to pay, it doesn't leave a lot spare.
If I see something, I think, oh, I like that, I can't get it because I can't afford it. Especially this time of year, it's really hard, thinking along Christmas and, oh, I wish I could buy that, or, hey, that's all right. But no, you can't get it. If you haven't got the money, you can't buy it.
Michelle survives on benefits and has £800 coming in a month.
Not enough money to go around for everything, really.
Right, so now we're off to see Michelle, who's found herself seriously in debt and is trying to work her way out of it to see whether or not Money Made Clear can help her sort out her problems.
I have my £72 going out to clear the debts that I've got, and I put about £15 to £20 in my gas a week.
Michelle has racked up more than £5,000 in debt. As a single parent, she's paying it back on her own.
There's kids needing clothes and shoes and things like that all the time. Mm-hmm. So, you can't save.
And where did you turn to borrow the money?
Different places, like finance companies, things like that.
Mm-hmm. And so probably paying quite a lot for the amount that you borrowed in terms of the amount you had to pay back, presumably.
Yeah, I more or less double to what I was borrowing.
Mm-hmm.
But you could guarantee if one of my loans was nearly finished, they would say, oh, you've got a loan to turn over. Do you want to turn this loan over? Well, when you're living on not a lot of money, you're not going to say no. You're not going to say it.
She's desperate to claw her way out of debt for the sake of her kids and new grandson.
And I've never had money for myself. And I used to always say to them, I want you to do things properly. When you've got your own family, be able to take them on holidays, do fun things, days out. I wish I could have learnt to drive, but I didn't have the money to be able to do it. And I could have took my kids on day trips. So if I had spare money...
Well, I think Michelle should be really proud of herself because she found herself in debt and she's been doing her very best to get out of it. But like Michelle, around the country there are millions of people who, especially at this time of year, are really worried about how they're going to make ends meet, how they're going to manage their money, and they need a bit of a helping hand.
The community spirit is strong on the estate, but it's not a place without its problems. More than a third of the working population here are claiming benefits, double the England average. Only 13% of people here pass 5 or more GCSEs. The average in England is nearly 50%. Almost a fifth of people claim incapacity benefit, close to 3 times the national average. And at the family centre, the jury is out on whether the government's £12 million scheme can really make a difference.
There is poverty in this country, you know, and we're kind of on the front line of that, if you like. We get people in the centre here who just can't afford to buy food. But there are a collection of people who do not have enough money to survive. And to that end, we try to help them out. How long is this project going to last? Is it just something we're going to throw money at for 6 months or 12 months and then you know, then it's gone away? Because the problems won't have gone away, they'll still be here.
Margaret is sick with worry about her finances, and it's affecting her health.
It's there all the time. It just does not go away. I pray for it to go away, and it just does not go away.
Margaret is a pensioner and lives on just under £800 a month, but she also owes over £5,000. Her money worries began when her marriage broke down.
I was never a person with a lot of money, but when I was married, my husband dealt with all that. You know, I just got so much money, you know, to buy things. And then when I was in mowing, I didn't know how to cope.
So for someone like you, Margaret, how does it feel being in debt in that way?
Absolutely horrible. But I put myself there, so I've just got to try and get myself back out it.
Well, again, you're not alone, but
no.
How did you find yourself in that position? What happened?
Oh, I was in a club, and I let myself go, kind of thing. The MasterCard was the same, so it's, you know, it's my own fault. I know that.
Well, you shouldn't be too hard on yourself, Margaret, because you're not the only one who's in this position.
That's just it. I do, because I blame myself.
Well, Margaret's money worries are clearly making her deeply unhappy and starting to really affect her health. And I think if this service was needed by anyone, it's needed by people like Margaret. And there are literally hundreds of thousands and millions of Margarets around this country.
In town, credit unions are part of the pilot scheme and are a good cheap way of saving and borrowing money. Mandy has seen how easily people on low incomes are exploited by doorstep lenders.
Well, they just charge a higher rate of interest. If you need £100, they'll maybe charge you 170 to pay back. You know, I've had quite 500 September, paying 950 back.
The next day, Chris is back on the estate and he has an ace up his sleeve.
And they'll just take a payment off you, distribute it out, and that you don't need to do.
Carla, one of the people making it happen on the ground, is going to give Michelle and Margaret's finances a going over.
Okay. Savings, do you do any savings at the moment?
You want to laugh? Oh.
Okay.
Carla starts with a budget plan.
Right. What I want to probably suggest to you to do as well is just keep a diary for a few weeks. I know it sounds a bit boring, but as soon as you buy anything, spend any money, just write down where it is and how much you've spent. Okay. Look at it after about a week or two and just see, you know, what you are actually spending it on.
Margaret is having trouble keeping track of all her debts and dealing with creditors. Carla suggests a trip to Citizens Advice.
They are there to help and they are experts.
Yeah.
And obviously if they can do a debt management plan for you or something along them lines, it's going to be benefiting you. You're not going to no longer be speaking to the companies, thank God, and they're, you know, hopefully going to stop ringing you.
Carla gives Margaret an action plan to take away. Michelle will be debt-free in 18 months, and Carla needs to rein in her Christmas spending so she can stay on track.
How much you spend?
£300 each on my kids.
Right.
That's what I would normally spend on my kids every year. Okay. And then the big present on top.
Michelle, that's loads.
Yeah, I says I overcompensated. This year I'm really going to have to pull myself back.
Well done. So the best deal on your gas and electric we're going to look at first. Okay?
And Michelle also is given some other tips to save money.
So you've seen it on the street. Have you learnt anything?
Well, I've learned that if this service is needed anywhere, it's needed in communities like this and to help the sort of people like Margaret and Michelle who we've been talking to.
Isn't the real problem, though, that people just don't have enough money and that offering advice is actually not the solution?
Yes, of course, and the service isn't going to help people who are trying to live on desperately low levels of income, but it can help them to manage that income more effectively and perhaps feel more in control, because we've seen from people like Margaret that it can cause real unhappiness if they're out of control of their money. It can affect their health, it can affect their family relationships, and if we can do something about that, we will have done something to help them.
Overall, do you think it's been worth having this kind of advice available to you guys?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Takes a lot of pressure off you.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of the worries.
When I walked in that door, I had, if I had 2 bricks on my shoulder, and since I spoke to that lass, I feel a lot better.
If anyone's watching this thinking, I'm in that situation, what advice do you have for them?
Go and get the help. Ask
Seek help.
someone.
Yeah. Seek help.
When's the last time you heard a good word said about our new towns? Peterlee, Killingworth or Billingham here? Some people just want to bulldoze them to the ground and start all over again. But is that really the answer? Well, architecture historian David Heathcote thinks not. In fact, he's got something of a soft spot for concrete.
It's an absolute dump. It's an eyesore. The stink is horrible.
Nothing here. It's a dump. It is.
All the myths about new towns. Ugly, badly thought out, not a pleasant place to be, and somewhere other than where you would live.
To me, these are beautiful and exciting places.
It's a fantastic piece of late 60s brutalism. It's really very sculptural, isn't it? Every style of modern architecture is here. It's amazing and it's almost elegant.
So I'm on a mission to make you realise what treasures we have in these new towns before it's too late.
We commissioned a group of young architects to design a new region. To go out on a...
After the war, the North East embraced the idea of building radical, futuristic towns like no other region.
With decent facilities, there could be marvellous skiing in the Cheviots during the winter months.
And our new towns would reflect all this free and forward thinking.
They had really advanced plans and they used the best architects of their day. And not only that, they used artists, which is almost unheard of in new town planning. It really is an area of fantastic, advanced, forward-thinking development that seems to have been forgotten.
It all started in 1946. Easington Council produced a book called Farewell Squalor, proposing a new utopia, Peterlee.
And in it, the ideals of the new town movement are made very clear. No jerry builders will be permitted in Peterlee. This scum of the building trades will not be allowed to stake a claim in this new town of ours. Peterlee must be designed in all its phases by a modern and proven team of impartial experts, and only the best is good enough. And the man they picked was Berthold Lebetkin. A Russian emigre, he built most of London Zoo and also, more importantly, 2 really beautiful and famous tower blocks in London. He was the most spectacular of modern architects. So appointing him here was an opportunity to turn the North East into an architectural showcase of socially aware, forward-looking architecture.
But Lebetkin didn't end up building anything here at all. His plan was to erect futuristic high-rises in the town centre for the miners. Ironically, it was the National Coal Board that stopped him. They wanted to mine underneath. Peterlee's various developers always held on to Lebetkin's vision of giving miners and their families a better life.
What do you think is the most amazing thing about the Peterlee idea?
How much it's improved people's life, quality of life. What they didn't have before, a lot of them lived in squalor and now they don't. It's totally transformed us. Some people forget about all those things.
To me, Peterlee's council estates are really special.
This beautiful, mature landscape wasn't bulldozed for a new town, it was accommodated. The houses sit in the landscape. And perhaps the most wonderful and surprising thing about Peterlee are things like these paths. Victor Passmore, who designed this area, designed it so that the houses and the landscape and the routes through it were a pleasant and interesting artistic landscape. And, you know, for a local authority estate, that's amazing. Would they do it now? I don't think so.
I can't help wondering what the town centre would look like if it had got Lubetkin's modernist architecture. Maybe a bit like this. Killingworth, another great vision that became a forgotten town. But its industrial architecture is truly world class.
This stunning building, this is local architects, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Gordon Ryder and Peter Yates, who designed this building, actually worked for Lubetkin at Peterlee. And they felt that, you know, that the North East deserved architecture of the highest order and the highest quality.
When you look at this, you can see that it's covered in glass. And all this glass is old Guinness bottles. Recycling. These buildings, they're like Gibbside, they're like the Tyne Bridge. They're here, they're local, and they're of a quality that transcends the region.
And that's what all the new towns were supposed to be about. Visions of the future.
The first real planning success is at Billingham, where at least the centre has really got moving.
An unusual place to celebrate the wonders of British planning, but really the whole place is a gem. When this was built by ICI in the first instance, they had a really clear idea. They wanted to build a nice place for people to live, somewhere that was as nice as Yarm or Thirsk or Northallerton or one of those kind of places, but in a modern style. And it looks like a sort of modernistic version of some lovely southern French town. When this was built, this was a nice cosy spot and it was beautifully planted. There's a real ambition here to make a better Britain.
Safe from the cars, the kids can play in peace while Mum does the shopping.
One of the really big ideas that influenced British architects was the Italian towns and the piazzas in the Italian towns. And the essence of the Italian town is that you're there to be seen and to see others. So here in Billingham, you've got this big grand staircase, and it's there as a piece of luxury. It's a great waste of space, and it turns everybody into a little dramatic character in the big play of the market.
In the future, leisure is going to be as important as work.
And in the new leisure age, Billingham became a mecca, thanks to another amazing piece of architecture, the Forum.
Swimming, ice, bowling, shooting, archery, cricket practice, theatre as well. Anything you could think of, they've put in.
And it's still here thanks to Frank's campaign to get it listed.
The Forum goes with Billingham. Billingham goes with the Forum. So wherever you go, if you talk about Billingham, they will say, oh, the Forum.
A good life, sport and recreation for every man.
Billingham was an inspiration for a vibrant and spectacular new region.
When you're alone and life is new.
So what went wrong?
Just listen to the music of the traffic in the city.
The town centre is really dated.
Like a lot of things that were built in the 60s, it looks scruffy quicker.
Unfortunately, we associate modern architecture with failure. This whole idea of demolishing stuff and starting again is just a myth, because it isn't the buildings, you know, it's the people and how they use the buildings.
Exactly. Look at how new towns have been abused.
What have you got? A huge smoker's bin there. It looks like someone's committed suicide by self-immolation by it. It's a tragedy, really. It's almost glamorously architectural. Of course, with all this signage and paint, it looks like rubbish. It's not a good idea to tell everyone how dangerous the birds are. You know, some places say, oh yeah, it's a health and safety issue, pigeons.
If you go home, your house isn't in this state.
How do you make them love these new towns?
Tell them about it. Tell them about the town. People don't notice things, yes, unless you push it down their throats.
Billingham's in line for a revamp, but thankfully they're not completely flattening the place, like they did at Killingworth.
This is Killingworth Town Centre. All this is all private property. This belongs to a company. So it's not public realm, it's not public space, it's some piece of 80s stylising with no real content. And over at the end there, you can see the whole thing's covered in razor wire, because really it's a big defensive structure. This bears no relationship at all to the new town idea. There's no sense of community, and it's anti-people. I love it.
My view is this: don't bulldoze the new towns, restore them and celebrate them. This is the Apollo Pavilion.
Here in Peterlee, they had the vision to put in what is really a kind of modern landscape temple. This pavilion is 40 years old this year, and some years ago it looked like it might have been demolished, but fortunately the local community decided they were going to keep it and restore it, and in its restored state it's probably going to be listed, so this has really become part of the national heritage. But new towns suffer from the thing that they're forever modern. Nobody ever thinks they get old, nobody ever thinks they're going to last. So maybe we should start thinking about our new towns as tomorrow's old towns and start keeping the good bits.
What do you think? Is David right? Should we celebrate our new towns? I feel a heated debate coming on. You can add your comments to my blog at bbc.co.uk/Chris Jackson. Are you in the festive spirit still, or is it all bar humbug? Well, I don't know if you know, but the inspiration for Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, which is this year's big blockbuster movie, actually came from the north. Lucy Hester has been finding out that that old miser Ebenezer Scrooge actually owes us quite a lot.
5! The stars are all out in London's Leicester Square for the premiere of the hotly tipped new film of A Christmas Carol. In Disney's version, Dickens' tale gets the Hollywood makeover in 3D.
This is A Christmas Carol as you have never seen it before. It is set to be the blockbuster film this Christmas, but very few people know that the origin of Dickens' famous story lies 200 miles north of here in a little town in North Yorkshire.
Ebenezer Scrooge was sitting in the office of his counting house, watching through an open doorway where, in a miserable little cell beyond, his clerk was busy copying letters.
Tucked away in the heart of historic Malton, this is the famously miserable counting house of Ebenezer Scrooge. It's never been open to the public, but we're about to get rare access to a place Charles Dickens knew only too well.
This building is the former offices of Charles Smithson, who was a very good friend of Charles Dickens.
The fire in Scrooge's office was small, but the fire in the clerk's office was so small that it looked just like one coal.
I'm intrigued to know why the offices of the then local solicitor Charles Smithson could be behind what's arguably one of the greatest Christmas stories ever written.
The people of Malton don't realise there's such a good connection with Dickens, and that's the irony of it. We, as a town, should publish that and make sure that people do know.
But as the coal bucket was kept in the master's office, no sooner did the clerk appear with his shovel in his hand than the master suggested that perhaps it's time for us to part. To which the clerk would return to his office, pull his comforter more closely around him, and try to warm himself at the candle which, not being a man of strong imagination, he failed.
Charles Dickens came to Malton in July 1843. In December the same year, just 5 months later, A Christmas Carol was published.
Dickens had a bestseller. The public couldn't get enough of the tale of one mean old man's remarkable transformation.
Bah! Humbug!
It's a sensation in its own time, and it's never gone away. Scrooge is perfectly happy in his own locked-up little world, and the spirits pick him up and shake him and tear him out of this locked-in selfishness.
Look to see me no more.
In a way, Dickens wants to do exactly that to you as a reader, to make you aware of the suffering that surrounds you and to make you change things.
I'm on the hunt for evidence to link Malton with A Christmas Carol. The key is Dickens' solicitor friend Charles Smithson.
We know that Dickens came to Malton at least twice and stayed for long holidays with Smithson, and he clearly loved the place. In one of his letters, he wrote, "Oh heaven, such green woods as I was rambling down in Yorkshire when I was getting Martin Chuzzlewit done last July."
For days and weeks, we never saw the sky but through green boughs, and we inspected ancient monasteries at midnight when the moon was shining.
At what was the Smithson family home, I'm meeting Ian Ray, Smithson's great-great-great-nephew. He's researched his family connection with Dickens. Published letters by the author recall a deep and lasting friendship with the Malton solicitor. He's in no doubt that Dickens reworked aspects of the town into his book.
Charles Dickens did tell the family that the office in Chancery Lane was Scrooge's office, and the bells of St Leonard's were the bells in A Christmas Carol. The timing suggests that this would be at most in his mind, Malton, when he was writing A Christmas Carol.
Dickens occasionally drew portraits of people, but that's pretty rare. Usually he takes elements of people and he transforms them. He turns them into something quite different in his own great creative imagination.
Much of Malton remains just as Charles Dickens would have known it, and with a bit of detective work, it's possible to see echoes of the town and its people throughout much of his writings.
Indisputably, the housekeeper at Charles Smithson's Malton home became the character Sarah Gamp in Martin Chuzzlewit, and it's thought Smithson himself appeared posthumously in David Copperfield as Mr. Spenlow, a solicitor who, like Smithson, died without leaving a will. But it's A Christmas Carol that remains possibly Dickens' best known and best loved work, and Disney's new film is a rollercoaster ride.
When I found myself working in the digital cinema, the idea popped into my head that, you know, A Christmas Carol would be perfect for this art form. Those characters are hyper-real, and it's never been presented that way. So I thought we finally have the tools to do it, and to maybe do it in the way that Mr. Dickens originally envisioned.
It's odd how much we love Scrooge. I mean, we wouldn't be telling the story over and over again unless we were very fond of him. And it's also the fact that he transforms into a rather lovely old man, and we see why. And we see him soften, you know, as he sees the consequences of all that, and we start to root for him and hope that it's not too late. And everybody loves a transformation story.
At Malton Library, I went in search of more evidence to link the town with Ebenezer Scrooge and A Christmas Carol once and for all, and found something very strange. Local legend has it that Dickens performed one of his famous readings in a theatre on Malton's Savile Street, but these maps show there never was a theatre here, just two chapels big enough to hold the kind of audiences Dickens would attract.
This is the really interesting bit. According to the map in the library, this independent chapel in Dickens' time was known as the Ebenezer Chapel.
There are plans afoot now to make the Chancery Lane offices into a visitor attraction, and the new film will be pulling in the crowds this season. Dickens' famous story is set to run and run.
Ah! Humbug.
And bar humbug to him too. Well, that's it for tonight and for the current series. We're back in January. So if you'd like to make any suggestions for the stories we should cover, then please do get in touch. The email is chrisjackson@bbc.co.uk. And who knows, maybe your idea will be on the screens in January. But until then, from all of us on the programme, good night.